So welcome to today's Knowledge Nugget. And as most of you know, my name is Zena Cox and I'm the Operations Director for ideasUK. For over 35 years now, ideasUK has been at the forefront of workplace innovation. Our purpose is really to support an organisation's sustainability through the power of innovative thinking. And for a change, if you do come to these Knowledge Nuggets, later on you get more of my dulcet tones, which is not normal for these Knowledge Nuggets, as I normally farm these out to somebody else. As always, we're joined by the Innovation Network. We have Connor with us today, and also our partners Wazoku, who very generously provide the software to administer the ideasUK Idea of the Year competition, which is kind of the topic for today too. And on that note, I will hand over to B. Schofield, who we work very closely with. So B, over to you.
Thank you, Zena, and thank you, ideasUK and Innovation Network, for having us here today. I'm Director of Customer Success at Wazoku, so it's mine and my team's jobs to help organisations build and sustain ideas programs inside their organisations. So crowdsourcing ideas, not just from employees, but actually from the wider world, be that the ecosystem, the suppliers, the partners, and even our crowd. So I'm here today with Zena to talk to you a little bit about celebrating success. I'm going to start with just a very quick introduction into Wazoku, then some sort of advice and some insights from what we've seen around why it's important to recognise success in your ideas program, not just in terms of actually getting it off the ground, but sustaining it. And just some observations that we've made around how people are using crowdsourcing to really capture those great successes, those stories, before we move on to Zena telling us a little bit about how to take those ideas, those stories, and really make them compelling in terms of a competition. So just a very quick introduction to us. So as Zena said, as Wazoku, we work with organisations to help provide the platform and services for setting up and sustaining world-class innovation programs. We use a method called challenge-driven innovation. So rather than getting people to add any idea to your platform, it's all about identifying real business needs, capturing those ideas, and in doing so, improving the chances of a successful implementation by really pairing that idea to a very specific business need. So our platform is supported by metrics and reporting to ensure that you have the right insights to be able to improve your program over time. And obviously, as flexible working is now a thing, this and even before the days of flexible working, ensure that people anywhere can add an idea. So that's enough about us, the brief introduction. And as I mentioned, what we're going to be talking a little bit about today is why it's important to celebrate success when running an innovation program, what organisations are already doing, and actually how you can use crowdsourcing through a platform or not to be able to capture those successes and stories. And once you've captured them, how do you go about telling that in a powerful way? And then I believe we've got Trevor as well as Mike, who are going to give us some advice on people who have seen it all before, who have seen ideas captured, and can tell us what they're looking for when it comes to telling a story, if that's okay. Wonderful. So starting off, why is it important to celebrate success? So as we've discussed, and I've seen previous webinar from ideasUK and Innovation Network, this recognition is really key to driving the continued engagement. If we think about the activity of sharing your idea, there's always an inherent nervousness around it. And actually, in order to ensure that we can continue to get that participation, people need evidence. They need to see it works. And without those people, there's no future of ideas. So that recognition is really key to ensuring that we're able to drive participation in those programs. But it's not just about sustaining the audience that we've already got, it's about activating your crowd. And the growth of your ideas program is dependent upon ensuring that you've got the right champions, you've got people advocating that approach, and ensuring that they're telling these stories, making it real, and being able to draw in that wider network. So it's not just about how do we make sure that the crowd that we've got keep on coming, it's how can we tell stories and how can we recognize people to ensure that we continue to grow that program. This is also critical to the actual behaviour change in our organisation. If we think about how organisations are typically working, it's not that failure is recognised at every turn. We often see that there can be a little bit of blame culture and nervousness about coming up and showing that trial and error. So when you're able to celebrate success, either of it is a successful idea which was implemented, which generated a lot of ROI, or it's an idea that, hey, it didn't go to plan. It's really important that we show people in our organizations, our management, our leaders, that actually trial and error is a behavior that really is recognized, that those innovation skills are something that are actually held in high esteem by the organization. Then in doing so, we can really encourage that people bring those ideas forward. So in terms of these successes, we're seeing a lot of different activities around organizations to be able to use crowdsourcing, but also take those successes from implemented ideas to help bring and elevate the existing crowd. So one of them, which we're going to be talking a little bit more and show you a quick demo today, is the internal awards. So actually finding and using crowdsourcing to capture both new ideas or recently implemented solutions to be able to recognize the work of the individuals or teams in those organizations. So that's what we're seeing, often maybe on a annual or biannual basis, to be able to really recognize those innovation successes. We do, of course, see external awards like the ideasUK Idea of the Year competition as well. Often when you go run those internal awards, it's a great way to be able to get that recognition outside of the organization, to say, you know, we have been held up on a stage amongst other global organizations, and actually it's a great way for the individuals or teams who have implemented those ideas, but also for the organization as a whole to be celebrated and recognized as an innovative organization, which in turn makes you quite desirable to work for. So we're seeing that as well as the internal awards celebrating and recognizing individuals, the external awards too are happening. Pitch events, and often used sort of as part of the internal awards, sort of Dragon's Den style, are also a great way, especially if you can get more people. So someone bringing in their new idea, either as part of a competition or an ongoing program, to be able to pitch their ideas, is a way for individuals and teams to get that recognition and that senior visibility that they might not already have. Formal promotions, so another good way to be able to recognize people is actually to make it part of the formal promotion structure. If people have been able to demonstrate that they've got good ideas, that they know how to pitch those to senior leaders and take those through to implementation, that's also something that we are seeing more and more of in our organizations. And the role of the champions. So often we see innovation champions as part of ideas schemes or innovation schemes, but actually formalizing that role, giving people the opportunity to learn new skills and then be actually highlighted as a champion, is also something that we're seeing happening increasingly to be able to help recognize those employees that drive that scheme forward. And spotlights, so similar to an award, but it might just happen on a more ad hoc basis. You might have a fantastic idea which has been implemented, and you just want to bring that employee really to the forefront of the organization. So a spotlight, be it on the front of internal magazine, probably more likely that you're going to get it on an intranet these days, is a great way to be able to showcase some of those successes. So I'm going to switch over quickly and show you just quickly an overview of the type of internal competition you can run to crowdsource those ideas. So bear with me 1 second while I just switch screens. Wonderful. So what I'm now taking you to is a demo instance of our platform. As you may see, other than the colors, it's quite similar to what you've seen idea competition or be judged on that before. But just to showcase what a competition can look like, be it using our software or a similar, or even just an offline process to be able to capture those ideas and run your own idea of the year competition. So what we would recommend for these is that you actually run it as a closed process. You don't necessarily need to get everyone to vote on everyone else's ideas. Competitions tend to be that you capture those solutions or implemented ideas either as individuals or teams and take them through to an initial evaluation. So that gives you the opportunity to be able to say, do these ideas actually resonate with what we think the idea of the year is? You might choose to have categories such as continuous improvement, sustainability, to be able to help filter those ideas down and get some judges to be able to assess them against the criteria. Is it innovative? If it's something we've seen before, but just some of the things that you might want to think about as part of your filtering process when you bring in those ideas. It's also a great opportunity in thinking again about the employee recognition to be able to hold a face-to-face judging phase. So you've done your initial evaluation internally, you've selected, let's say, the top 10, and you give your idea creators or your idea implementers and teams the opportunity to come and present those ideas forward. So bring those to senior leadership, get some visibility and help you select the idea for your idea of the year competition. What you can then do with these ideas is, of course, bring them to the forefront and actually share them in a competition such as the ideasUK idea of the year competition. You've probably done quite a lot of the hard work by that point, getting those submissions, filtering them so you know you've got the cream of the crop and you can come in to the idea of the year competition. I believe you all have access and the details have been shared, and enter in those ideas in a more external facing manner coming through the idea of the year competition. So that's my part, just some quick insights there and things that we've seen and things that have worked well. And I'm now going to hand over to Zina, who's going to tell us actually about, once we've got those ideas, how do we make this powerful? How do we tell stories which are really going to compel those judges?
Thanks, Bea. So
I'll just bring my screen up and then we can get to your slides.
Great.
There we go.
Fabulous. So I think you've heard that there are lots of different ways to recognise success, and it really is so important to individuals to kind of appreciate or feel appreciated actually for the ideas that they've given. But actually, it can be really tough to cut through that general noise that's out there. And how do you really get your idea to stand out from the crowd? Because when we think about it, we are bombarded with information constantly. The average person is exposed to over 5,000 messages every single day. Can you just imagine? Of this, we're only aware of about 86 messages, and only 12 will be remembered, even less acted upon. So if we think that we want someone to take action about our idea, how do we make that happen? If you even think about your personal inbox, you know, your emails, how many emails do you receive every day and how many do you actually open and then read, or do you just click that delete button? Hopefully not for your ideasUK emails. So we want to talk today about how you really make your ideas stand out from the crowd. How do you give your message stickiness? And whilst we're talking about ideas in a competition today, actually this can apply to any message that you want people to take notice of. So that could be whether you're asking people to contribute to a challenge, whether you are requesting funding for an idea, or absolutely celebrating success and getting a judge to take notice. How do we kind of cut through that deafening noise that's already out there? So if I could have the next slide, Bea. Because in essence, communication is the key to this, and it's all about generating persuasive communication. So really knowing your audience and understanding what could resonate best with them. And certainly when it's internally, that's possibly easier than kind of resonating with your external judge. But what we really need to do is to engage both the head and the heart of whoever we're communicating with. Because often we're really quite good at delivering facts and figures, the kind of evidence for people to understand why we're doing something, what we're hoping to achieve. And that's very much the rational argument. And whilst that's really important because it gives you credibility and develops kind of confidence in others that you've done your research and you've kind of based your ideas on solid foundations, you kind of really need to take it that step further. It's a really good tactic to kind of see if you can find some common ground between you and your audience. And again, this stems from knowing your audience, their background, their expertise, and effectively communicating by finding some common reference points, kind of something you can springboard off of for that new concept or action you'd like them to take. But that still is only one part of the equation, and we also want to appeal to people's hearts. As human beings, we make so many decisions every single day, and we very much use shortcuts or triggers, many based on our emotional responses. And yet, actually, when we read ideas or we're listening to people talk, it's that emotional connection that's often missed. So, in essence, you're only leveraging half the opportunity. And what we really need to do is, whether our communication is written or verbal, is really drive that emotional connection. Go for the next slide, please, B. So this is a chap called Antonio Damasio, great name, and he's a professor of neurosciences at the University of Southern California. And he very much argues that emotion is a necessary ingredient to almost all decisions. He states that when we're confronted with a decision, emotions from previous related experiences affix kind of values to the options we're considering. So they create preferences for us, which lead to our decision. So if we think about ourselves, we're human, and in response to emotions, we often choose to do something. So in a physical confrontation, fear may force us either into that fight or flight mode. And in our daily social confrontations, insecurities may, lead us to buy the latest Apple iPhone because it's seen as cool and innovative, and we want to be seen as cool and innovative. So it kind of fits with the way we want to be perceived. So when we think about how we sell ideas or how we drive actions on the back of campaigns, whether that again is to an internal team or the impact you wish to have on a judge when entering competition, if we really want to cut through that noise and optimize our chances of being heard, we need to give much more consideration to the power of emotion. We must make that emotional connection with our end user and our idea. So the next slide, B. And really, it is that emotional connection that helps us stand out from the crowd in every interaction, whether it is written, virtual, physical. To create that emotional connection, we also need to be empathetic. So as we heard our last knowledge nugget, empathy is that foundation of building trust in long-term relationships. But empathy also helps us put ourselves in others' shoes and think about how our message could be received and identify ways to ensure it resonates with the audience. In addition, always be thinking about how you demonstrate the value your idea could bring or indeed has already delivered. How do you describe that, not only in facts and figures, but how do you get that deeper meaning and connection? If you think about sausages, we can all buy sausages, but what we're aiming to sell is not the sausage, but the sizzle at the end of the day. It's the so what, basically. It's that message we're trying to create. How do you personalize those communications so it really resonates with your audience, their background, their agenda? How will your idea potentially add value to them? Or how can you get them to understand how your idea adds value to others? And finally, be authentic. Often we're really passionate about what we do, ideas that we've really worked hard to support to get to fruition. Think about how you inject a little bit of you, your personality, your story, or the personality and story of the idea creator. Did they work in their garage each day to kind of get this idea? Did they stay late in the office just to show that tenacity to get their idea over the finish line? So think about how you tell your story, tell your employee story, and put your passion into each and every communication to really connect with others. So next slide, please, B. One way we can really get that emotional connection is through storytelling, and storytelling has a really significant impact on the brain. When we hear a presentation, very much probably like mine, that's full of facts and figures, the language part of the brain works alone just to decode the words into meaning. But when that same information is conveyed as a story, the brain responds very differently. When we listen to a story without having experienced it, we physically and chemically do start to experience it. When the story and the characters really draw us in, we experience the events and emotions ourselves. However, don't just take my word for it. We've got a short 3-minute video now from one of the creators at Pixar. So Connor, if you could share the video.
Hey, Pete.
Oh, hey, Val.
How's it going?
You know what? I'm having a really bad day.
What happened?
See, what Val's saying when she says, what happened is, tell me a story. And that's actually what this season of Pixar in a Box is all about. To make a movie here at Pixar takes years, but it all starts with a story. Humans have been telling stories since we could speak, probably even before. We tell stories around the campfire. We write plays, we write novels, short stories, we make movies, we take photographs, tweet to each other, the list goes on. The power of story is that it has an ability to connect with people on an emotional level. One of the things you hear all the time, this advice, is write what you know. Now, as a kid, I was like, I don't want to write about suburban Minnesota, that's boring. I want to write about explosions and monsters and car chases. Well, what that actually means is, yeah, go ahead and write about monsters and explosions and car chases, but put something into it that talks about your own life, how you feel. Do you feel scared? Do you feel alone? Something from your own life will make that story come alive and not just be a boring car chase. When I started directing Monsters Incorporated, the way I would pitch it is, it's about a monster who scares kids for a living. That's his job. He clocks in, he clocks out, he eats donuts and talks about union dues, and we thought that was a pretty funny idea. And sure enough, when I would tell it to people, they would smile. But when we told the story as a film, people started getting bored and restless, and they're like, I don't understand what this movie's about. Well, what I finally figured out was that it's actually not about a monster who scares kids. It's about a man becoming a father. And that was what was happening to me. So why write about what you know? Well, it's because probably what happened to you made you feel some particular way. And what you're trying to do really when you tell a story is to get the audience to have that same feeling. One of the big revelations for me telling stories is how much work they are, really. I always thought you'd just tell the story once and it would be perfect, and geniuses like Walt Disney or Miyazaki, this brilliance comes out of their head once and there it is. Well, the truth is, our stories don't always come out exactly perfectly the first time, or the second time, or the third time, or the fourth time, up to the 30th time. And so you keep going again and again and again, and only after retelling the story many, many times does it really sparkle. This season of Pixar in a Box is about how we at Pixar tell our stories, in hopes that it will inspire you to tell yours.
But seriously, what happened?
So the first thing, I get to my desk, right? It's 8 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, Zina, you just unmute that.
I just realized that. I think as they said there, that it's really about getting that emotional connection, which starts by, putting yourself off mute, to be perfectly honest. But, you are really passionate about those ideas. It may be just a design of a widget to us, but it could have revolutionized a really tedious and frustrating process. And storytelling really helps you to share the impact that it's had. And to do it well, however, does take time, and it may need a couple of rewrites and get others to be reading each time to see what impact you're having and how you can tweak or adjust to really make that message resonate. So looking at a couple of top tips for storytelling. The first is around villains and heroes. And if you think about all of the best fairy tales, they have a hero, a villain, and a battle of wheels. Now, when we're telling our stories about our ideas, I guess your idea, your solution, your way of doing something is kind of what the hero of your story. The villain can be the problem that you're trying to solve for, that issue, the challenges. You know, what was the obstacle? What was the trauma that people were suffering that needed your hero to save the day? And really growing that dissatisfaction, being able to describe and share that pain point and the reason why the change was needed can really help your audience, in this case, our judges, understand why your idea was so important. So use that emotive language too. And we really want you to be descriptive. Often not everyone has in-depth knowledge of your subject. So think really how you describe the situation. Perhaps you can draw on historical experiences that your audience may have already encountered, the frustrations that they may have felt. Can you maybe align it to a different situation that everyone might be aware of, just to get that kind of pain across that you were feeling? And whilst we do need description, remember to keep the language simple. Avoid that technical jargon and acronyms unless you know that your audience are going to be able to understand them. Whilst it seems a bit crazy, the best stories have a start, a middle, and an end. So if you think about the myriad of fairy tales out there, let's just take Cinderella. At the start, she's happy, she's got a loving father, and then he dies. And then she's got the stepmother who's wicked and chains her to the kitchen sink. Enter the fairy godmother, also the middle of the story, and she gets her happy ending when she marries the prince. Now, okay, our stories of our ideas might not quite be the same, but we can actually have that start, the pain, the difficulty we were facing, the what we did is the middle, you know, how you went about doing it, how you created your idea, how you developed it. And the end, obviously, is that result, the outcome. And remember, when we're talking about outcomes, we're not just talking about facts and figures. We're not talking about, you know, just the hours saved or the cost saved, which are important, but also what was that emotional impact on the employees, on the customers, for example? How did people feel about it? How did you feel about it when the idea came to fruition? And finally, all of those first three apply to all methods of communication. So whether we're writing or talking or you're meeting somebody face to face. But if you do get that opportunity, and certainly with our competition, if you get through to the final stage to actually present your idea to people, then think about your body and your voice. If you want to create emotion and get that real buy-in, there's a certain amount of emotional expression that you need to show. Don't get me wrong, this isn't about crying. That can just be annoying to some people. So we're not taking it to that stage. And actually, too little emotion can seem unauthentic, but also too much emotion can be a bit of a turn off for many people too. But keep it authentic with your facial expressions, your hand gestures. I'm a hand gesturing all the time. You just can't always see it on Zoom. Your vocal emphasis, your speed, you know, take a pause if you really want somebody to like think about that sentence that you've just said. And it can kind of feel very familiar to you too. So it shouldn't feel inauthentic to you. It should be the way you deliver, but just think about how you can do that in a slightly more impactful way. And certainly when a listener recognizes signs and sounds of those different emotions, they can experience those emotions too, which again is the key to storytelling. So storytelling really can have significant benefits and really support you to make that emotional connection with your audience. And if you are truly trying to engage your audience, you really get to cut through that white noise of the bombardment of communication that we're all exposed to every day. And your idea can really stand out, and the passion that you've had for that idea can really become contagious. So I'm going to stop sharing there and come to Mike, who is one of the judges for the Idea of the Year competition. And it'd be really good, Mike, for you to just share what makes an idea stand out for you. So when you're reading dozens and dozens of entries, what makes an idea go, yes, that needs to go to the next stage, or yes, that's definitely my winner?
Okay, so I made some bullet points on what I was thinking, and you've just covered all of them in your descriptions about a story. I was thinking, that one's gone, that one's gone.
Still share, still share.
So when I judge, it's broken down. If you think there's 3 separate stages, you've got your submission. Now, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a computer expert, and we get ideas in saying, in our world of engineering, we changed bolt SC3960 and we did this, and I think, okay, I have no idea what you're talking about. So I get to the end of it, and I think, what stood out to me in that, what am I thinking about? I think I understood nothing. So think about the audience, think about, you've got 4 separate judges with different backgrounds. Will they understand what I've written? So make it jargon free and make it something that I'm going to understand in the simplest term. You can add all your facts and figures, but just make me be able to understand actually what you're talking about in the first place, because we need to put you through to the next round. Within the submission, the outcomes is always a letdown in terms of we get loads of facts and figures, but we don't get any personal. We don't get this affected the business this way. This has saved our employees getting their hands cut off because the machine was cutting their hands off every day. Has it stopped cutting their hands off? We never get that part. And then if we put you through, it means we've understood, we've got it, we know what you're talking about in some form. And we can ask you questions about what we don't ask about. And then the second stage, you submit as a document about a presentation, about the idea itself. And then you're already then through to the face-to-face judging. Then what we get in the face-to-face judging is 15 minutes of you talking about the presentation you gave us 4 weeks ago that we've read 10 times and we understand. Nobody's ever come into the judging and said, okay, you know all the facts and figures, you've got it, here's the story behind the idea itself, make it personal. So we sit there and we're interested then, not that we're not interested, but we're more interested in what's actually happened and why it came about, why you needed to fix it. I know that it saved you X amount of pounds and it's affected so many customers because you told me 5 times already. And where we try to encourage people in face-to-face is not to PowerPoint and talk us through the PowerPoint because we've seen it. Just talk to us. So, if it's a story, we can ask questions that we need to answer to push you up the scoring level a bit more, rather than just, yes, I know that, thank you very much, it was nice to see you. So for me, it's what was described through this session is make it a story, bring it to life to the 4 people sitting there who've read 20 engineering ideas and didn't understand one of them, but understand what the idea was. Bring that part to life. And I think for me, that would help.
Thanks, Mike. So that's great, actually. And I think just reinforces the theory that we've been talking about today in a very practical way. It's about telling your story of how it came to be. Has anyone else got any comments?
Can I ask, Mike, does one ever stick in your mind of someone telling a really good story?
Yes. Do you enough remember her name, the lady with the coins in Dubai?
Yes. She sticks in my mind. Money boxes. So they were collecting kind of loose change in terms of lots of different currencies.
Airports everywhere, no matter what currency they could collect. But she came in, she didn't talk about how much they collected, what they did. She was so enthusiastic about the idea. She was literally laughing and joking all the way through the presentation. And even though I believe we gave her a judge's award, yes, because there was ideas that had bigger impacts and they came about, but we all pick our own judge's award, and we all wanted her, because we remembered the story rather than we collected coins. Yeah. It was a very simple, basic idea, but she brought it to life.
Yeah.
And I think that idea was probably 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And we still all remember it.
I've still got the coin she gave me, a little thing on my windowsill.
I think for me, all this is about change. So whether it's a big idea or small, it's a change to someone's routine, lifestyle, working practices. And you always have to take it from a point, well, what's in it for them if they support this change or deliver this change? And that's how I've always focused on stuff. So yeah, welcome to my world, Michael, on engineering. It just often goes over my head as well. But for me, the question I asked from HR was, okay, how is this going to improve someone's life? How is it going to make the working environment better? How is it going to make the job easier and less stressful? And for me, that's the story you tell. You're absolutely right. It's not about what's happened. It's about, if we deliver this or if we make this change, this is what's in it for you. And for me, I've always found that works really well. You'll always get your cynics, but generally people will accept if they see an improvement for them, they'll generally support any change.
Yeah, and on that line, it doesn't matter if your idea has affected 2 people or 20,000 people. It's the idea, the principle behind the idea, not how big it is.
Absolutely.
So when people have said to me, we had ideas, but they didn't affect a lot of people, so we didn't submit it. Well, it doesn't make a difference. If it's the idea is the idea, not the scale of the idea.
But that idea may generate one that really does affect large numbers of people as well. It's another incremental change, isn't it?
Can I put a suggestion for a new award this year?
You can make a suggestion.
There's something around the best. Do we have one in there? Best communication, but the best story. Who's told the best story of their? Because everything you said, the one that sticks in your mind, that lady with the coins. I was thinking back to another one from Dubai, but there was the one about, was it the disabled parking badges? Stuck in my mind, and the person telling the story, the lights used to go off, and they didn't have to enforce anything. But that was that bit about it does. It's the things like that just do kind of win you over, don't they?
Yeah, we have talked about a communications one. We used to do a communications separate award previously years ago, and we've been talking about how we bring that back.
Yeah. So maybe we, and I guess it does, like Mike said, very much come into the judges' special awards as well, because actually it's not the idea that creates necessarily the biggest impact, but actually it's about the passion and enthusiasm of the individual who either created that idea or is kind of selling that idea.
Maybe it's one of the judges' awards, because I'm just thinking if you start to separate that from everything else, then the focus then becomes on flashy presentations and things flying in from all directions, because they then see that as the important thing that's going to get you the award. So if you incorporated it as part of the judges' award and said, I like this one because the way it was delivered was fantastic and it told the story, you're still keeping the same format and you're not focusing on the fact that it's got to be a great delivery and a great story. If that makes
I think in a way
sense,
that's what we sort of do, because we've separated the judges' award from being one to being four.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
we're four individuals and we look for different things.
Yeah.
So if anyone's got any questions, you're more than welcome to ask. Otherwise, I will just share a last couple of slides and let you know our forthcoming programme. So we have our next few knowledge nuggets lined up already, actually. So next month, we've got creativity and the brain, developing innovative people, teams and culture. Then in July, we're going to look at metrics and how do we measure success. Then we're going to have a break in August, but back in September with IP and patents and how do you really protect your ideas and make sure everything's covered. So do look out for the registration and join us for those sessions. But just to say, of course, this has been most of the topic for today. The Idea of the Year competition, which is held annually, is open for submission. So we do hope to see your entries into the competition soon. You can enter up to 10 ideas per organisation and the closing date is the 20th of July. And this year we are back to our physical conference and face-to-face award ceremony. So do make sure that you budgeted to join us on the 9th and 10th of November at the lovely Tewkesbury Park Hotel for what promises to be an interesting, interactive and fun 2 days. So thank you very much. Thank you to our speakers, Bea, and to Michael for sharing his judging experience, and to Connor as always from the Innovation Network for hosting. So have a good day and I will send out the link to this later. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Zena. Bye.
Bye.